Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. Now, we're doing this slightly differently this week. We're using the webinar functionality in Teams to see how it works compared to a live event. So we would really welcome your feedback to nepinfo@transformation.police.uk, so whether you prefer this format or the normal live format. And it's half-term week, so well done to those of you that are working with us this week. And we know a lot of people off at the moment, but obviously the show goes on. And today we're going to be looking at some of the core features of Microsoft 365. Now, Mike and I speak to colleagues constantly through the working week and often late at night on social media as well at times. And some of the feedback we get is sometimes we just need to go back and cover some of the basics around how files are saved in the SharePoint space, in Teams, how you share them, how you can make sure that people can access them and make life a little bit easier. We want this to be interactive as normal. It's a half-hour session. We'll get you gone by 12:30, we promise. But we need your questions. And of course, the live chat is open this time, and you can chat to each other a little bit more than you normally can in a live event. So if you've got anything you'd like to bring across into this session, please pop your comments into the chat and start engaging with us. And if you have any specific questions you want us to cover in this session, please let us know, and we'll try and cover that as we go through this as a live session and show you some of the tips that we found from our experience. It might not necessarily be what you'll get from the Microsoft manual, but it's the experience we've got of using this platform for the last couple of years and understanding how things work. So let's get into it. Mike, I'm going to ask you a question first so you can come into the screen. And for once, we're actually together in the same room, shockingly enough. We're approaching 50 webinars we've done over the last 18 months or so. And the first time we've actually done one in the same room. We're actually at the National Management Centre in Lancashire today. So, Mike, what's the biggest difference, do you think, between the old shared drives approach and the approach we now have with Microsoft 365 and SharePoint and OneDrive?
Thanks, Dave. I think there's two or three major differences that we're finding, and also talking to colleagues across forces, they're also finding too. I think that one of the big challenges is getting the mindset away from how we used to do things. So in my previous force, I had a shared drive for personal device, personal content, and then a drive for people to access. It's thinking differently around about how we can use the different aspects of SharePoint to ensure that we're collaborating better, how well we can give people that opportunity to access the content. And ultimately, it's that whole way of how do we ensure that we're saving it in the right place so that we know where we can access it for ourselves, but perhaps more importantly, where colleagues can access it, and we can cut down that whole toing and froing with regards to sending different emails out with attachments.
I've popped a slide up onto the screen now, Mike, where it talks about OneDrive for business, SharePoint for team stuff, and everyone's stuff. Is in simple terms, it's out of the comms pack in the enabling centre. What sort of thing would you be saving in OneDrive in particular?
I think that with OneDrive, where we're looking at those personal files, it's documents that we're working on, that we're creating, that perhaps we're not ready for colleagues to collaborate with at the moment. But I think it's having that understanding of what should go into OneDrive. Are we ready to share something, or should it be going into SharePoint? So it's just getting that thought process correct in our heads.
And you know, we have to think about the old number 7 bus theory. What happens if you can't access somebody's folder because they've been taken ill, they're not available? The work has to continue. So this is where the shared drive used to come in. It's pretty much the same on SharePoint, and you really need to be thinking about structuring it and making it accessible, because it's very easy just to save things into Teams, but then it can be quite challenging as the team becomes quite mature and there's lots of files in there.
I think one of the questions is, how do I share something into SharePoint? Where do I go? Where do I create it? And how can I make sure that it is accessible in the right way?
So what I'm going to pop up on screen now is a demo team that we have between ourselves over at the MEP. So I'll just pop that on screen now. So you can see here we are in Teams, and if I run back into Teams here into the browser, and it's always challenging to try and demonstrate Teams on Teams, but this is where we're at. So I'm in my Microsoft Teams environment. This is our demo channel here that Mike and I can share and work things. And you can see we've got the Files tab at the top here. So just clicking the Files tab, brings it straight up onto screen. A little bit slow, we are live broadcasting. And this is just a temporary folder we've set up so we can talk you through today without perhaps showing things. So this is just like your Windows Explorer that you're used to using. You've got your Teams environment, and these are the different categories. So these are the sort of categories we might hold files on, and you can see here we've created a folder here for NMC newsletters. Now you can still actually move things around in here and create that structure that we crave in a busy organization. So we should be thinking actually that folder containing those newsletters should really be moved into the NMC folder. Well, again, you can do all of those things in SharePoint where you can't quite do it all in Teams. So you can see here it's asking me, I want to copy the link, I can download it and pin it to the top and make it easier to rename. But if I want to do anything more than that, I really have to run out of the Teams environment into SharePoint. So there I go, I've run off into SharePoint. And again, it absolutely reflects what you were seeing in Teams because they're all interconnected. So I want to move this folder here, put a little tick next to it, into the NMC folder so it tidies up my structure a little bit. All I have to do is go click to move to. It's brought up the library again of where we are, so I'm in the current library, that's where I want to be. I'm in the general folder and I'm going to push it into the NMC folder, click move here, and everything's just moved straight across into where we want it to be. Similarly on webinar scripts, believe it or not, we actually script these events. If I want to move this one into the communications and training folder, which is what I will do, I'll move that, where's the button gone, there you go, move into the current library or into another SharePoint folder or team if I wanted to. You could do all those things, pop it into there, move it in. Now, the beauty of moving a file rather than copying it, it brings everything with it. So if I go back into this folder now that I've drilled down to, you can see all the scripts and webinar holding slides that we've done over the recent webinars. And this is where the control really comes in. You can manage access. So Mike, do you want to talk us through the sort of thing that you might want to do around managing access?
So I suppose when we're looking at sharing content and information, it's really thinking about who we want to have access to it. We want to ensure that security is there and we are managing those permissions. So ultimately, if we've created something, we know who we're going to be asking. So I think, Dave, you put up on the right-hand side there the whole manage access folder or bar, where we can then start to decide who it is that should need access to it.
And you can see we've got different levels of access. So the owners of the team have got all the owner rights that you'd expect, and that could be just a handful of people. But then you've got visitors who, on this occasion, if they've got access to visit folders in this team, they can only view them. And that's fine within the organisation. We only want them to view them. But members of the team can edit them. And we can manage that here for the whole, for either a document or a folder. So if I go back up into here, I can manage access at folder level. So every document within that folder then inherits the rights of that folder, or I can go straight into a specific document. And if I go into this slides for webinar masters, I can say, right, okay, then I want to manage access to that so nobody else can view that who's not a member of the team. Click that button, that's it now, it's gone. Only members of this team have got access to that folder. And again, you can be very specific on that and make it individual. So if I wanted to give a link to give access to that folder, I can bring in a member of the team. So Reesin, for instance, in the team, I'd send him a message and say, demo of access management. So he knows I'm not trying to do anything complicated for him. Sends that link, he's sent an email, and now he's got access to this particular file in this team, just that occasion, just that folder. He can't get into the wider folder, he can only get into that file. And again, we can grant various levels of access, including sharing access. So let me open up the actual slide there and show you what's happened here. So I'm in SharePoint and now I'm in PowerPoint Online. My personal preference, and I know the preference of many, is to actually work into the desktop app because it seems to have a bit more functionality. That's fine, just click the button and you are still opening the same file and it's running away into PowerPoint and opened that slide in PowerPoint. Really helpful. Now you've still got your share buttons here. Now because this is saved in that folder, and you can see Reese has just popped in there to see what's going on. So that's really helpful. He didn't know we were going to do that today. So Reese has popped in, there he is. And he's on slide 1 at the moment. I can see where he is. If I wanted to share this PowerPoint on with somebody else in the team, so I'm going to pass it over to Mike now, and he'll show you what happens. I would open this up to Mike and I say, Mike, can you review slide 3? I will click send on that, and I'll get Mike now to share his screen of that notification coming in so he knows what to do. So Mike, over to you if you can take the screen share.
Okay, just waiting for it to come up on my chat. Hasn't come through as yet.
Typical. The laws of demo. I'll bring back my screen just for a second until it pops in, Mike. So there we are. One of the other ones while that's coming through, you might want to share. Well, the whole point of SharePoint is you don't email files to each other if you're in the same organisation. You share links and access to it. But occasionally we do need to send a copy outside the organisation. So this is one of the most powerful buttons. I love this button when I'm sending documents outside. Send a copy, clicking on PDF. That will actually run away straight away now, create a PDF version of this PowerPoint, open up Outlook, attach the PDF to it that it's created, and it's ready to send on now to any colleague I want to outside the organisation, inside the organisation, whatever I want to do. Click send, and that's sent the PDF. Okay. So imagine the steps you'd have if to do that normally.
Right, let me bring up my Outlook because the notification has come through. Okay, so hopefully you'll see my inbox there, and you'll see the notification has come through on my inbox to say David Bailey shared slide for webinars. I can then close that down and I can open up here. And there we go. So I'm now into the presentation, so I can now collaborate with David as time goes on. But I think we're going to talk on in a moment with regards to saving of the versions to make sure that we know exactly where we're at.
That's right. Brilliant. So I'm going to take back control of the screen share and bring us back to SharePoint. So let me just continue here so you can see it's still open. So over I am in here in SharePoint now. So next week we're doing a webinar on Evergreen, so we've already started working up what we're going to be talking about here. But if I go to a previous one further down, you can see some of the questions here. So if I took this one here about body worn, clicking on the 3 ellipses, I've got my version history button here. Now typically I've picked one with no version history, so I'll go to one where I've done a lot more work on. So let's go back up here. There we go. So if I open up the version history, every time I edit, or anybody who's got access to this folder edits a document, it creates a new version. And you can roll back at any point and see the differences. So you can see I'm on version 8 of this document already. If Mike came in here and wanted to access it, so let me just give him a quick share link into this one now. So again, just before, as I've shown you before, there's Mike being sent a link to it. So again, I haven't even had to open up the document to send a share link. I know where the document is. I've sent the share link straight away across the board, and he can open that. So when Mike comes in, and if he edits anything, he can change it. And one of the also most powerful buttons here is the Alert Me button. This can be really helpful if you've got to, want to know what about a document that you're all working on collaboratively. So you can see here, this document, I want an alert title. I want it to send alert to me by email, or I can have it sent it as a text message if I really wanted it to. When anything changes on that document, or when someone else changes the document, and I want to be told immediately. If I click OK on that now, that's set up, the alert is set up. I believe Mike's in the document now editing it away. If I open it up and have a look, you can see where Mike is. No doubt. It's just, again, it's working away. So you can see Mike's in the document, and you can even see live where he's editing it. And this is all empowered because we've saved it in a shared working space. So that's working away. And when he finishes his work on that, he pauses, say for a couple of minutes, the new version will be saved and it'll be in the notification. So again, really gives you that power to be able to manage how things are working. And again, if I ever want to roll back to a version, I can manage all this here. So I will roll this back right to the very beginning when I started this document. You can see I can view the document in its current state. open the button up, and you can literally see all I wrote was the title literally at that point there. Didn't do anything more with it, but I can roll it back to those versions at any point, and if you do roll it back, the version that you've rolled it from remains as another version, so you can always go back again to manage that. And again, that's all managed through that really simple SharePoint saved in this space folder. I did see a couple of questions in chat, so if I stop screen sharing, we'll take a couple of questions in there and see what we've got. So
yeah, so we've got a question here from Ash. What effect could occur when moving a folder and someone is active in a document editing it? Will it save? Will save automatically action?
What you get is a conflict note. So if somebody's already opened it and you're trying to move it, it won't allow you, and it'll let you notify you that you can't do it right now until that folder's saved. And obviously what you could do is message them to find out if they're still doing it and pick it up later on. So it avoids any conflicts like that. Obviously, you've also got local sync. That's a capability. Have a look up on the Enabling Center and on Microsoft, where you can actually save an offline copy of your files that are constantly updated when you are online to your hard drive. And again, if there's a conflict resolution element of that, if there is any conflicts.
Thank you. And there's a question here from Anita. Can we go ahead with this structure planning while we have some people in force migrated and others not? So, for example, we may move project documentation from our on-prem folders to our team site, but SCT will still need to be able to access. Can they do this if they're not migrated?
I think talk to your local technical team about what aspects you're at. Chances are you may have some issues with that, because if they can't access the new files, then you're going to end up with two versions of this. But certainly we start thinking about your structures at the early stage, but think about your team structures, which is a force project-led decision. Work with the project team about what teams are being set up. Certainly our advice might be less teams is better. If you have far too many teams, it can be quite challenging to work out where documents are saved. Remember, you've still got folders within teams and SharePoint spaces, but something you need to talk to your local team about, your local migration team, about what functionality you benefit versus what you might lose at that point.
And we have a question here from Amanda. Can you please go over where the send a copy button is to share outside your wall, please? I can't find it on mine.
No problem. Let me show you again on mine. Let me just pop the screen back up onto the demo, and if I open up, say, let's go for this one, the one we're doing now at the moment. So again, this is a deck that we got from Nick a couple of weeks ago when we were presenting. So she sent the deck over to me, and I've saved it locally on my drive here. Hopefully you can see that okay. So if I click share, you can see these are the ones where you share internally and simple. And again, really important, you've got the functionality here to control if they can edit it and even block their download before we go into the other element. That's just in PowerPoint Online and in PowerPoint Desktop. But what I'm going to do is open it up in Desktop. So go to the Editing tab, open the Desktop app. You can see here it's asking me to trigger. Do I always want to allow it to do this? There's lots of notifications to make sure you're not going to make a mistake. So it's opened up the PowerPoint now, downloading the images. You can read your presentation while it opens and edit once it's finished. So it's obviously taking a little while across our connection today. You can see it's just downloading across. And obviously until it's downloaded, I won't get the share functionality or the edit function. So just give it a second. There we go, it's nearly there. Come on, mobile broadband. There we go. There we go, lovely. So in this share button on the top right hand side, opens up the share panel. So by default it's sharing within the organisation, and you've got a couple of options. You've got share with anybody in the link, which the organisation prevents. Share to anybody in the police digital service with the link, which is what the tenant allowance we've got. Share for existing people, so that's people who've got access to the file in the folder, or specific people. And again, there's my allow editing and block download functionality that I can do in that. So that's the internal element. If you go further down, again, you've got options here. You can send them a copy link, which is the best way, or you can send them an Outlook message. It already tells you who's got access to this. So it's already giving me the nudge that say NEP demo owners have got access, visitors have got access, and members have got access. I click on the send a copy, I can choose between a PowerPoint and a PDF. And again, the point is of sending it to somebody else, you don't really want them to be able to alter versions. So that's where that PDF button comes in really powerful. Click it once, give it a few seconds, it's firing away in the background, it's doing all those buttons. Think about the number of buttons this is saving you. It's going to saving you the export by saving it down, opening Outlook, attaching the file and starting the thing. So there it is, it's popped it up onto Outlook straight away, and now I can send it to somebody inside or outside the organisation as an email attachment, just as normal. So very simple to do, and hopefully that will save, imagine that can save an awful lot of time over any period of time when you're working on this sort of environment. So hopefully that one will help pick it up. Any more questions coming in?
Yes, we got another follow-up question from Ash. Which great question here. Will alert function also cascade to previous versions of the file, or only from the point it was added?
It'll alert you of any changes since you've set the alert up. So no matter which version, because it's not monitoring the versions, it's monitoring the whole document. So again, that will help you massively to do that. And I'm just opening up the email alerts about the notifications. Here it is. So if I just screen share again now, what the alert looks like it's come through on my Outlook. So I'll pop that onto the screen there. Just miss a couple of things. You can see in the calendar. So you can see here that webinar script and the key points of what Mike's added to this straight away. So I haven't even had to go to the document to understand what's been shared, and that's come through on my Outlook within a couple of minutes of Mike making that edit. So it monitors the whole document. So if it got regenerated to a previous version, that's the notification you would get.
I think that, for me, is one of the biggest benefits of the collaboration tools. If I think back to my time back in Force when I was involved with training, and as a training manager, if I was working on a document for the senior leadership team, or we're working on a training program, that constant send a copy to 7 or 8 different people for them to feed it back and then to edit it and then send it back out again, where actually it's that in the moment sharing and collaboration that will save so much time and create new efficiencies to what we do.
Absolutely. And you know, I think one of the things that, if I just share a screen again, is and go back to something that even more basic, if you're working in the Outlook space, and you know, that's the recommendation. If you can be in Teams, so if I start off in Teams, you can be wherever you want to be. But if I go over to this document, to Outlook, to SharePoint here, my new is here to create any sort of document I want to create. So if I want to open a new Word document, it's automatically in SharePoint Online. It's ready for me to save it. I put my title in at the top here. So test for the 27th of October. And you can see it's already picked up. It wants me to share it in shared documents. Again, here straight away, it's asking me where's the best place for me to save it, and put that folder in here. So I'm going to pop it into here as a new document. That's where I want to put it. So let's create that new Word document in there. There it is. Test the document. You can see it's put it in the right folder now. Always when you're typing in front of people, your fingers go in the wrong place. You can see it's already given me version history from the start. So there's my document going in. Again, this is where I want to collaborate. And again, you can use things like track edit, track changes at any point. So if I want to bring in Mike, there he goes, simple as that. Again, sending the message in, it comes. You can be working collaboratively on this document. You can set up review, and so you can get all those track changes set up. So for anybody who changes that document, you can get that. That's a really powerful way of doing the collaboration. You can catch up on changes that have been made whilst you've been out of the document. Again, there's nothing there yet because we haven't done much work on the document yet. And again, you can still drop it into your desktop app at any point, which gives you the better functionality that you're more used to working in. So again, you can see you can be working line by line differently and tracking changes all the way through and know what you're going to do. And every version is saved, and then you can decide to save this as a major version, a copy, whatever you want to do. It's all there for you in the functionality. So we'll just check the last couple of questions before we start wrapping it up, because we've already gone 25 minutes and we've only covered some really basic functionalities. So would your users be able to search or find out the existence of a document if they're not members of the team site? The answer is no. Visibility is based on your access. So if you don't have visibility on it, then you can't really find it. And that brings up a really important point, Kate, that the search capability in SharePoint is there to help you. If you've got access to a folder in your team, and I think the example might be something like response. You might have all your response officers in one team, but then they'll be on 5 different shifts. So you might have channels for each of those shifts. But because everybody in response might have access to the library, if they wanted to hand over from shift 5 to shift 3, a document that we're working on, it'll be accessible to everybody in that team, even though it's not directly visible to everybody all the time. So again, you can manage that access in a really good way. So it only gives you access to things that aren't. Take a look at Delve if you want to understand a little bit more about what could be found that's in there. I think that's it. Is that all the questions in there?
I think it is, David. Yeah.
Right, so we're 4 minutes to the half hour, so I'll give you a preview of what we're going to be doing next week on the webinar. So next week, again, it's slightly different, and I've seen Gareth's question, we'll try and come into it in a second. Next week, we're going to be talking about the evergreen technology. Now, it sounds a bit geeky and techy, but it's really important. The way we use technology has changed massively over the last few years, and it goes for us in a corporate stroke business environment as well. We used to buy DVDs of software and install them and let them rule. And if you think about it with your movies as well, we all now move to Netflix, Amazon, etc., where we buy our movies as a service now, not as a product. We don't hold the DVD, we don't hold the Blu-ray. And similarly for Microsoft 365 and all the other modern technologies, they're services, not stuff now. So that means they are in the cloud and they're working on a common architecture, etc. And the point that we love most about 365 and other platforms is that you are getting the latest tools. Now they only work because we've got a design that allows those tools to work. We've got IAM that protects the identity of everybody, and we know who can access it. And we've got where Mike and I are today, the National Management Centre, working 24/7 to safeguard the data that's held within our structure. But that means we have to have modern technology all the time to access this stuff, and it's constantly changing. You know, Microsoft is constantly adding more functionality to the stack, but it's not just NEP. Almost every new piece of technology we're going to be getting in policing will sit in this new evergreen technology. So what does that mean to a head of comms, a finance lead, a tech team, and the IT infrastructure? So we're going to have a half-hour session on that ahead of a workshop later on in the year where we'll go into the detail about the implications for information security and the way that might change it, even something as detailed as the financial structure of the way we finance a IT department. So all these things we're going to start to cover, give everybody a basic understanding, bust some of the myths about evergreen, and give everybody a bit of knowledge so that they understand the changes that are coming in. So I think do come into us next week. We've got Debs from Kent coming to join us from a force perspective, and we've actually got some of our technical architects, and that is a job, who design the infrastructure to help us take us through that piece. So, you know, if you're a department head and you're thinking, you know, I'm going to need more modern technology, understanding this environment will help you to move that on. So there's last couple of questions in. Let's see if we can do it them all. If a team in a hidden channel, are they able to share links outside of them? Gareth, you've met my technical ability there, so we can ask that question and get back to you on that and to understand that, but possibly not, it depends how it's set up. And Marilyn, is there a way to tag documents in SharePoint with metadata to old versions to help improve search? I believe there is quite a bit in doing that, and again, that's quite a deep and technical question. Ask your local IT team on what they can do to help with that. Thanks for joining us today. We've popped the links into the chat, and we would welcome your feedback as always. We got 3 pieces of feedback last week, which was really helpful to us, and we're going to pick them up as we move forward. Let us know if you prefer this format of webinar compared to the live event. It's a little bit more difficult to deliver compared to a live event for us, but let's see what we can do. We will be back to a live event next week for the panel discussion, and we hope you've got something out of today, and let us know most of all. See you next week.